Assalamualaikum and good morning. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. So, my name is Johan Abdul Razak, and on behalf of Badan Warisan Malaysia, I would like to wish you a warm welcome to our 10-part talk series on the diverse origins of Kuala Lumpur. And today is the last day of the KL Festival, and today we have two sessions back to back. And our first session this morning will be delivered by Dr. Lim Teckwyn and Peter Leong with the title Muddy Waters, the Lost Sungai Lumpur. Now, a bit of background. I think many of you might know that one of the earliest Western sources of the name Lumpur was by John Anderson, who traveled in 1818, and he listed down a list of settlements and villages along the Klang River and the Klang Valley. And he wrote here that I think Teckwyn will go at length, but he mentioned that at all these places tin is obtained, but not at Lumpur. And there's a place called Sungai Lumpur. So there's this question of where is Sungai Lumpur? So Teckwyn is going to go through with us, and the good news is that we're actually in the midst of it. In the area where the river probably is. And I've even received word that just up the road, we even have underground rivers. And the site of the Conde station was supposed to be just next to Jalan Stoner, but they had to shift it because they found a huge underground river. But I'm not going to spoil the show. And a bit about the two wonderful colleagues of mine. They've been extremely helpful. Teckwyn, as you know, runs a resource stewardship consultants, or rescue, and is an honorary professor in environmental science at the University of Nottingham Malaysia, and is affiliated with University of Malaysia Center for Malaysian Indigenous Studies. He studies interactions between people and nature. Peter is a chemical engineer who held various roles in the petroleum industry before taking an interest in environmental conservation as well as civil and land rights. He's also a hiking, orienteering, and mapping enthusiast who studies trail and roadway histories. Now, they've both been extremely supportive with me at Taman Tugu and also Malaysian Nature Society. And I'm heavily indebted to Teckwyn for helping me to put together our talk on the Orang Asli origins of Kuala Lumpur a couple of weeks ago. And Peter Leong, I don't recommend you going to a forest with him because I'll take the easy route and he'll take the difficult route, and that's Peter. So do remember to put your phones on silent. If you need the toilets, is way at the back. Don't forget to check out our gift shop, and there's a QR code for the KL Festival rewards points. Don't forget to give us your feedback at the end, and if you like to donate, there's also a QR code to Badan Warisan and the restoration of the Rumah Penghulu. So on that note, I would like to invite Teckwyn to start the show. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan, and good morning, everyone. It's nice to see so many old friends and familiar faces, and also a lot of new faces. I would like to start by asking how many of you were here yesterday morning all right, so yesterday morning there was a talk by distinguished author Abdul Rahman Lupis, who in many ways helped frame what we're going to talk about today. I will, however, start from scratch, assuming that you know nothing about the topic. And so we'll go, we'll start by asking some of you. I know this gentleman, Ko, is it? Yeah, he's from Sarawak. And so maybe someone who's not, I was born and raised in the Klang Valley, born in PJ, not actually KL proper, but still, maybe I'll ask you, what do you what did you ever hear about the meaning of the name Kuala Lumpur, or the history of the name Kuala Lumpur when you were growing up, learning about Malaysian history? What were you taught, and or do you know now?
Well, from what I know is that Kuala Lumpur. From what I know is that Kuala Lumpur should be started from a place where it's mostly for perlombangan bijak timah, but we can't quite trust the origin of that name because we can't quite find the idea of koala right in the middle of the land, and then it somehow suggests it's a very muddy places, but it's very distinct from what we see today.
Thank you. All right. So I'm not sure if you've heard, but yes, there is this conception of a muddy place somehow could make to do with tin mining, but it's not so clear, right? Maybe someone who appears that they are also not from here. Musa, may I ask where you're from?
I'm here on a business trip from the UK.
Have you ever heard of the meaning of the words Kuala Lumpur?
Yeah, I would only know that as muddy estuary.
Right, muddy estuary. All right, that's great. Thank you. So I kind of grew up thinking that the translation is muddy estuary as well. Okay, so let's say Malaysian, Julia. What was your kind of like thinking of translation of Kuala Lumpur?
The same muddy estuary.
Right. Any others? Thanks, Julia. Any others translation other than muddy estuary? Someone. I'm gonna. Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand is actually the muddy. That's where the name of Kuala Lumpur come from. Muddy confluence.
Right. Great. All right. So now we have a few things. Muddy, fairly consistent. This idea muddy, and then we have two English words: estuary and confluence. Right. And that would be our focus for the start, to really get into these two translations and whether they work and how they've caused confusion. Right. So the first one, right. What does Kuala Lumpur mean? So let's start with confluence. How many hands up? How many have heard confluence or think of confluence? All right. And put your hands down. And how many estuary? How many muddy estuary? So it's slightly in favor of confluence, about 50-50. Right. So confluence is the one that I have seen recently in a lot of the material that the authorities have put forward, including the tourist authorities. Maybe I'll ask Carol, who I know is a licensed tour guide. Do you use the word confluence?
Yes, because the Bangunan Sultan Abdul Samad, the gallery is the muddy confluence. So
Yeah. So there's a big new gallery in the heart of town, the Sultan Abdul Samad building, and they have what they call it, the confluence, right? Yeah. So the big deal now. So confluence seems to have edged out estuary, although I think the older tour guides, the older history books talk about confluence. And my English is better than my Malay. I'm Malaysian, but my mother's British, and so my mother tongue is literally English. And so confluence, I think of something like this. Two streams, two rivers coming together and meeting. And so, in a way, the confluence is what? The confluence is this point around here. So, in some ways, it's apt for Kuala Lumpur. If you know the map of Kuala Lumpur, you have these two rivers coming together, and where they meet, that is where the heart of old KL, that's where kind of KL sprung up. So you can sort of understand how you think, okay, this is the Kuala, this is the confluence. However, there is a slight issue with the next translation, the one that the gentleman mentioned earlier, this idea of estuary. Now, the issue with estuary was pointed out to me by my colleague, co-speaker, friend, Peter Leong, who's going to be taking the second half of this talk. In framing the talk, I'm giving the background, the history. Peter's going to talk more about the current situation and the future. Anyway, Peter pointed out, his English obviously better than mine, that estuary is actually refers to a coastal where the river meets the sea on the coast. So you have the sea down here, river coming up, river draining out into the sea. This area around the mouth of the river, that is the estuary. And so this has been pointed out before. In fact, it has been documented. Someone wrote an article, in fact, I think one of the founders of Badan Warisan wrote an article pointing out that estuary means on the coast. And so he said it's strange to have a Kuala so far inland, because if Kuala means estuary, then it's something like Kuala Selangor. Kuala Selangor is on the coast, right? So you've got the Sungai Selangor meeting the Straits of Malacca, that is the Kuala Selangor. Other Kuala Terengganu, similarly Sungai Terengganu, going out to the South China Sea. Kuala Terengganu is on the coast. So all these are estuaries. And there's a strong parallel in the English language or the English tradition for river mouth, places on the coast named after the mouth of the river. For example, Plymouth is named after the river Plym that meets the sea at Plymouth, and Bournemouth, the river Bourne, Dartmouth, and so on and so forth. So there are quite a few examples of mouth of the river incorporated into English place names, and similarly in Malaysian place names. So to a certain extent, such as Kuala Selangor, yes, estuary, Kuala can be translated into estuary, but not always. So we go back to the example of Kuala Lumpur. It's far from the sea, that's an issue. But are there any other Kualas that we know of that are not near the sea? Anyone want to shout? Yes. Kuala Kubu Baru, very good, great. Quite far from the sea, quite famous Kuala. Kuala Lumpur in Negeri Sembilan, again quite from the sea, sorry. Kuala Kangsar, again, not an estuary, not draining into the sea, not on the coast. So maybe, do we go back to confluence or do we go back to estuary? I would say that maybe the way forward is that both of these translations are not so appropriate, because if we have Kuala Kubu Baru, actually, yes, there is a Sungai Kubu, and Kuala Kubu is where the Sungai Kubu joins the Sungai Selangor. Kuala Kubu is where Sungai is the meeting point. You could say confluence, but they're quite different. In the Kuala Kubu Sungai Kubu is tiny stream joining the big river Selangor. Something more like this, got a small stream or anak sungai or tributary stream joining the bigger one. And kind of similar for Kuala Lumpur and Kuala Kangsar. There's a Sungai Kangsar joining, I think it's the Perak River, right? And so most people have never even heard of the Sungai Kangsar. They know about Kuala Kangsar, but they've never heard that there's actually a river, Sungai Kangsar. So in summary about this background, when you, in the Malay terminology, it's geographical terminology. If you have a Sungai, the Sungai starts at, I guess it's the Mata Air, at the headwaters in the Ulu, and then it goes downstream to the Ilu, And right at the end of the river, you have the Kuala, and the Kuala is the mouth of the stream or the mouth of the river. So it's a river mouth, and it can be inland, it can be on the coast. If it's on the coast, it's an estuary. So now let's get back to Kuala Lumpur. So the difficulty here is that the Klang and the Gombak are quite reasonably similarly sized. And so when you look at it, it's actually not as clear as I've drawn on this map. When you stand on the bridge and you look at Masjid Jamek, it's not clear which one is the mother, which one is the child, which one is the anak sungai, and which one is the ibu. And so that's why maybe this translation of confluence was more favored, because it's like this general area. Another issue, another quite complication, is that the old town was on the right side, on the eastern side, and so it was the left bank when you're going downstream, or Mudik Kanan, or Kanan Mudik on the right when you're going upstream. And strictly speaking, according to the Malay geographical terminology, the Kuala is over here. The Kuala is not seberang sungai. The Kuala is surrounding the banks of the tributary river. So this Kuala is Kuala Gombak. And in fact, Buddhist himself pointed out that there are traditions for referring to this area as Kuala Gombak, meaning on the opposite bank of the river. All right. So if this is Kuala Gombak, then where is Kuala Lumpur? Or where is or if we agree that Kuala means river mouth, is it the mouth of the Sungai Gombak? I'm kind of the obvious candidate in that the Gombak meets the Klang, and then it continues. It's sort of like a tributary to the Klang River. So that is kind of raises a puzzle, though. And the historians such as Gulik, they were like, right, this doesn't make sense. Why would it have been renamed? If it was originally called the Sungai Lumpur, how come it suddenly became the Sungai Gombak? So this was the status of the mystery, the puzzle for many years. In fact, sadly, Gulik passed away. He first raised this as an issue, I think, during the 60s when he wrote about the history of KL. But then in the 2000s, when he went back and revisited it, he said it's still a mystery. It probably will never be solved. Okay, and there things stood. I mean, actually, kind of the narrative for what motivated us to. We did. Peter and I did publish an article in the journal about this. But what motivated us is that we've been talking about this issue on and off for some time. We're not really historians. We're kind of history buffs, but the one thing which Johan mentioned that we are kind of map buffs. We're kind of crazy about old maps, and we do go to forest trekking. We work a lot with Orang Asli, and we have been quite interested in mapping Malaysian landscapes from the perspective of Orang Asli, the ancient Orang Asli names for rivers, names for features, and so on. And so we had this interest to begin with. And then I'm quite pleased to say that we stumbled across an internet post on Twitter, X, formerly known as Twitter, by a gentleman, English gentleman by the name of Jesse Onslow, and he happens to be right here in the front. Well, this was a couple of years ago, right? And so Jesse again, he's also an amateur historian and podcaster and journalist, and he unearthed a record from the 1930s that also referred to this idea that there was a river and a Sungai Lumpur, and this reference said that the Sungai Lumpur was a mile upstream from basically from Masjid Jami, and that. And you found something on Google Map that looked like it might have been a stream. Do you want to say a few things about that? Yeah.
So the source said that the original Kuala was 1 mile up the Klang River. So I just looked on Google Maps, and there is now like what looks to be like a drain. And I started to think about the location, and I think Teckwyn will tell you a bit more about why this location makes sense. But as soon as I started to dig into it, it became a really fascinating site.
Thanks, Jesse. It's so great to have you here in this first public presentation on this topic. And so we can give the history of our attempt to try and unravel this mystery. Okay, so to go forward, we have Jesse kind of motivated me and also Peter to look into it in a bit more detail. And this, I think it's Peter found an old map that referred to something that could have been a candidate. We'll get to that shortly. But we did a thorough search for all references in history that we could find that mention Sungai Lumpur. And unfortunately, there are not many. There are only these 4 references that we see on the screen. These are the kind of like original or semi-original. They're sort of slightly secondary in that the authors, you'll notice, they're all foreign European names. Actually, one of them is a Eurasian. But the point is that these people did interview and work with some locals, and they were the ones who documented. And so as historians really have to base claims on what has been documented. So we looked into these references and did our best to try and interpret them and see if they make any indication of where this Sungai Lumpur might have been. So we see here that they're slightly different spelling. I think you will agree that it's referring to a Sungai Lumpur, with the R Lumpur meaning a river, or slightly different spelling. Was there an E at the end? I can't remember. Right. Okay. Oh, here we go. This is the first one by a Scottish civil servant based in Penang. He worked for the British East India Company. He was good in Malay though. He was the official translator for the East India Company, and he made a visit to the Klang Valley in 1818 and published his account in 1824. And that account looked at the whole of the west coast, more or less, focusing on Selangor and Klang. And in the upper part of Klang, he said these are all of the rivers or villages that have inhabited in the upper part of the Klang Valley. And so we, Peter and I, we mapped all of these rivers out, including there's Kampung Tenaga, near the Summit, USJ, Petaring, which is, well, I won't go into all of them, but the interesting one is right at the end. He referred to Sungai Lumpur. And he said the Sungai Lumpur, it's about a day's journey from Pahang, and it is the final inhabited village in the Klang Valley. And it was the most important source of tin, which is what Johan mentioned earlier. So fairly detailed, and the key point is that it was after Batu. He mentioned the Gua Batu, which has been interpreted to be Batu caves. which is kind of like not, all right, we get, now, I'm not sure if you can read this, but these are the first sources that just mentioned earlier. Anderson here, and in fact, the second source was a map by Irving, and then the third one by Pascal, and the fourth one. And what you can see here is that the solid line, the dot represents agreement, and the X represents disagreement about the features. So you can see that there's consensus on, more or less rough consensus on the name. There was a Sungai named Lumpur, but the rest, there's either inconsistency or only one or two sources mention it. And so the criteria are kind of muddled. Let's go through them one by one. To me, the most important one is the name, because place names are actually kind of sticky in the sense that they are strong. If a river is given the name, it's unusual for that name to disappear. It will live on in the vernacular. People will continue to refer to it. Place names in general are really quite sticky. We discussed this yesterday with Peter, in that we still refer to Jalan Buta as Jalan Buta, despite the fact it was renamed quite a few years ago. And I think older folk even refer to Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman as Batu Road. But this is what, 30, 40, 50 years after it was renamed. And so place names do have a kind of conservative element to them, which stick and they stay. And so the fact that this entire river name disappeared, that is really quite unusual. And yeah, I could think of a few reasons why it disappeared. Maybe it was very small, and people making the maps just didn't put it on the new maps, so it was missed out. That's one possibility. The other possibility is that it was somehow renamed by the Malay, because it could have been an Orang Asli name, and then when the Malays or the Minangkabau or the Chinese came in, they gave it a new name. Or even the British could have renamed it, given it a new name, and that could be the reason why it is lost. And I say lost in the sense that no one really stands up and says, yes, I know where it is. Although yesterday, as you will have heard, those of you who attended Lubis' talk said it's not actually lost. He says he has a friend who knows where it is. He says his friend says it is the Sungai Batu. And but that argument, we'll come back to that argument a bit later. Right, the second thing is the 3 out of the 4 sources say that the Sungai Lumpur was a direct tributary of the Sungai Lumpur, meaning it flowed into the Sungai Lumpur somewhere near KL. So that kind of narrows down the options. But another one, Anderson mentioned the tin. The others are kind of silent on it, because by then it was kind of obvious. Everyone knew that tin in KL and all of the tributaries around KL have got some tin. So tin mining is important. But the fact Anderson was so emphatic about it, saying that in 1818 it was the most important source. So it couldn't have been too tiny. It must have been certain amount of size, and it must have had some tin mines that you can still see today. So that kind of quite a strong point. Like you said, there are some settlements there. It's kind of hard to tell, because archaeology, if there were wooden houses, we wouldn't know. So, but anyway, that's another point. Well, this is one I squeezed in. Actually, none of the sources mention that it's muddy, but the fact that it has a name Lumpur, and Lumpur as in fact all of you who I asked, they translate as muddy. It implies that it was a muddy river. However, I would add, and this is kind of getting back to the standard tour guide translation, that strictly speaking, if you're talking about a muddy confluence, it would have been Kuala Lumpur, in that Lumpur itself is not muddy, Lumpur itself is mud. If you have muddy water, like cloudy water, that is, my Malay is not great, but I know that is air crow. Milky water is air crow. You don't say muddy water and use the word Lumpur. Lumpur refers to sticky mud, really viscous, a kind of swamp, the kind of muddy that may be in a mangrove swamp. That's the kind of mud that Lumpur is. Anyway, so we have some kind of swamp as one of the criteria if we're looking for our river. Now, Anderson, and to a certain extent Pascal, source number 3, said that the location was after Batu. And this caused a problem because subsequent interpretations, including Lucas mentioned yesterday this guy named Gripper. And Gripper said if it's after Batu, it means it's quite in the Ulu, meaning you go up Sungai Batu, you get the Batu caves, and then you go even further up Sungai Batu. But I'm like, well, that's just one way of looking at after Batu. You could also say after the confluence with Batu, after the mouth of the Batu River, you carry on the Sungai Klang, because actually you're going up the Sungai Klang, right? Sungai Klang. Okay. Now, one of the most specific references is the one which Jesse mentioned earlier, this reference by Pascal. And Pascal's source, who was a Malay informant who had been active during the Klang Wars, said that Sungai Lumpur was near Tonggachina. Tonggachina is a village which it's the today Kampung Batok Kramat. And he specifically said that it's a mile upstream from the Masjid Jami, meaning mile up the Klang River from Masjid Jami, and that's really specific. And so this one, unfortunately, is contradicted by the map from Irving. Irving's map has it being. Maybe I should have shown the map, but it's a rough sketch map, and it was shown yesterday, and it's in Lubis's book. It's a rough sketch map, and it has the Sungai Lumpur as being to the west and joining right at Kuala Lumpur. And so there's a contradiction here. But this one's really quite specific. And number four, this is Mark Fridia. He's not really that specific, but he says maybe in the vicinity of the government offices, or place where the government offices are today, which is the Sultan Abdul Samad building. So there's a slight contradiction there, but I really rate Pascal because he's so specific. And then in terms of size, Macfadyan pointed out that it's not necessarily a river. It could be a small stream. So I put that in because I think it changes our perspective. Rather than looking for the confluence of two big rivers, it could be an anak sungai. Right. So, this is all background. We'll get right on to what our analysis showed. So what we did is we did an overlay of the Klang Valley and all of the mining locations. This is a map produced by, I should credit him, Dr. Balamurugan, maybe about 30 years ago for his master's. He came up with this map of tin mining. And really useful. So I couldn't find any of the good maps of tin mining in Klang Valley. But all of these tin mining locations mapped quite neatly with Anderson's record. And it's not easy to do, but we found all of the locations mentioned by Anderson. How many were there? 26 or something? 23? Okay, 23 locations. All of them can be referred to locations today. And I think Peter and I are really confident that we found them all. The spelling sometimes a bit different. So the most controversial one, of course, is Sungai Lumpur. But based on Anderson, we know it was upstream from the Pangkalan to Batu. So Pangkalan to Batu was around here. And so that's number 22 on Anderson's list. And so number 23 on Anderson's list, it either could be somewhere up here. But if you look up here, there's no tin up here. So, but if you go up the Klang River, for sure, we know there's tin in Ampang, there's tin in Ulu Klang, there's tin also in this is the Bunus area. So there is tin all around here. So it's kind of not surprising that we have what's referred to as a Pangkalan Lumpur. Pangkalan is a kind of a landing place where they took tin ore and put the tin ore onto boats and floated the boats down to Klang for export. So presumably there would have been several Pangkalan along the Klang River. And yeah, we can come back to this if there are questions about this. I think this is really quite important for establishing the credibility of Anderson. Anderson has been studied by other historians and found to be meticulous. Historians have discredited him on the basis that he was boring, on the basis that he was really focused on economics. But no one has discredited his attention to detail and his honesty. Of course, he was really focused on making money for the British India Company. He was not so interested in documenting local people. He didn't even say the type of people found here. Doesn't say whether they're Malay, Chinese, or Orang Asli. He doesn't go into that. He just says, did they have anything of economic value? They had tin, yes. Well, that's what he mentions in his account. All right. So what else? Okay. Right. This this is more about mapping work. We zoomed in on KL, looking at all of the little streams, all of the potential candidates, including, right. I should mention it because Lubis mentioned it yesterday that Sungai Batu is up here. Kuala Batu is up here. It's, it's more than a mile away from this circle, semicircle. That is the distance 1 mile from, let's say, from the Masjid Jamek. So it's quite more than a mile away, but yeah, I don't really want to dwell on it, but since so many of you were here yesterday, I have to say that Lubis's theory is that Batu somehow originally came down all the way to here, and so this is actually Kuala Batu. That's his first point of his theory. Second point of his theory is that Batu was originally called Lumpur, but he doesn't provide any evidence for that apart from his friend who stays in, stays in Kuala Batu, came up with this theory that actually Sungai Lumpur is Sungai Batu, which, I mean, you can understand why they would want to have that theory, because it gels nicely with this idea that somehow the Gombak was the one. But if we get back to this idea of 1 mile upstream and dekat Tangga Cina, we have another candidate around here. All right, the Tangga Cina is up here. It's quite far, but the stream itself does have its catchment all the way up near Tangga Cina, and so this was the one which caught Peter and I's attention, and we found this old map. I think it's quite detailed map from 1929, and on that map there is this stream, And the label is not so clear because the label is sort of spread out. And I'm not sure you can read it either, but it says Treacher Valley Stream. You might have heard of Treacher Road. Anyone heard of Treacher Road? Right, some of the KL folk have heard of Treacher Road. Today it is what? Jalan Sultan Ismail today. So Treacher Road was, is it on here somewhere? They don't really. I think Treacher Road is up here. Anyway, Treacher Road kind of perhaps gave its name for Treacher Valley. And so when it came time for the British to give a name to this stream, I think they just thought, all right, we can call it Treacher Valley Stream. After this gentleman, William Hood Treacher, who was, I've forgotten the facts. He was either a resident or governor. He was a colonialist at some point. Resident, thank you. Resident Selangor. Okay, thank you, sir. Right. I won't spend too much time on him, but the main point is this stream, this Treacher Valley stream, it is a direct tributary of the Sungai Klang. Oh, it was, in that the alignment of the Sungai Klang in the, when was the diversion? In the 60s, I guess. All right. So, okay, around 1960, the Klang River was diverted in that this loop was, the shortcut was made connecting the Sungai Klang, just straightening it out. And so this old loop went all the way over here. So the original kuala was somewhere around here. So there was a kuala of this Treacher Valley stream going here. And you will notice it is right next to Bukit Nanas. And in fact, there's a little tributary of the stream itself going from Bukit Nanas. And I'm not sure if you know about 5 years ago, they found a tunnel. It's not a very long tunnel, but they found a tunnel on the side of the hill. I think there's a car park here. And so there is some evidence of quite old activity. Of course, the story of the hill is quite famous. Yesterday as well, Kursama talked about the importance of the hill as a stockade during the Klang Wars. But the location, just for those of you who can't see, there's Renaissance Hotel now. I think as Johan mentioned, actually this is all underground now, so mostly you cannot see it. It is now Jalan Sultan Ismail and Ampang. The junction over here near Renaissance Hotel is all covered up, all cemented up. So unfortunately, there's not much to see. But if you stand over here and you look across, all right, there are two viewpoints. We'll get back to, maybe we'll come back to this slide later when we show the picture. But originally, you could see you could see this bridge. So this bridge here, this is Jalan Ampang, and you see there's a little bridge here. With same vantage point a few years later. I think this is a photo taken from the early 20th century. So we'll go back here, stand here looking along Jalan Ampang from Sultan Ismail, and you'll see that there is a bridge. And this bridge is mentioned, or this bridge is shown on quite a few old maps that do not mention the name of the stream, but you can see it is, in fact, it is the only bridge on Jalan Ampang. Jalan Ampang actually follows a ridge top. But after this bend around Bukit Nanas, there was this little bridge here, and you can see the stream. Right, just check me for time. Right, but I think I'm going to wrap up and pass over to Peter. But before I do, I just want to mention this I'd love to spend more time, but I won't go into it. Just to say the Klang Valley has an ancient history going back to the Bronze Age, this bell, maybe 500 BC, right? And then the Stone Age. In fact, there's Stone Age implements found in the Klang Valley, in Batu Caves, and adjacent in Kuala Lumpur. So there is quite ancient history. Maybe going back 50,000 years, there have been people living in the Klang Valley. And this was mentioned yesterday, the Tumwan have an oral history. They say that Bukit Nanas was so important for them. There was, they refer to their ancestor, they called Tok Gombak, and the hill is known as Bukit Gombak after Tok Gombak. Tok Gombak married a woman named Moyang Angsa, and this is going back more than 500 years. But it's oral history. There's a Bukit Gombak in Klang, and also there's originally the Klang Valley used to be part of Negeri Sembilan. In fact, it was the first negeri of the Negeri Sembilan Confederacy. But at that time, it was just really a loose coalition, and so it's not so much that. But anyway, really quite an ancient, important history, and so it's not the case that Kuala Lumpur was just given its name when the recent Chinese tin miners arrived. This is much older than that. Yesterday mentioned Kubu Supampasa, a port on top of Bukit Nanas. So Bukit Nanas is really important. And then Pangkalan Lumpur and Ampang sprung up. And because Ampang is often referred to as like the reason that KL was created. But it's important not to forget that there were at least some kind of presence here, the Tumwan Orang Asli, well before the tin mining in Ampang. Right, hand over to Peter to talk about the situation today and what can we do. That's to advance, that's to go back, that's the point.
Okay. Yeah, hi. Oops. Yep. Hey, hang on, where's the pointer? Bottom pointer, this is, okay, got it. Okay, yeah, hi. So I won't take long. Basically, I'm just here to close the loop on what Teckwyn has been talking about and maybe help you guys to correlate what has been discussed with what you can still see today. Yeah. Now, this is actually a hydrological mapping of the Treacher Valley stream basin, or what we would like to say is the Lumpur Basin, if we can prove it someday conclusively. Yeah, you can see the color, we colored it pink, and then you see this strange color here. This strange color here is because that's the part which overlaps with the RSGC golf course. Something like 60% of the golf course is in the Treacher Valley Basin, right? And of course, the other part of the golf course down here is not. It's actually in the Sungai Pandan Basin, Pandan tributary of Kerayong. Not the Pandan of a currently very high-profile politician. Yeah. So now, obviously, the landscape has changed drastically from what Teckwyn showed earlier, the 1929 map. But if you were to actually just kind of go back to, did I go backwards? Oh, okay, backwards, yep. Yeah, if we go backwards to this map, yeah. Hey, hang on. Okay. Hey, sorry. Wait, forward?
Forward is the pink. Forward is pink.
Oh, sorry. The pink, okay, sorry.
Please close that.
Okay, got it, yeah. Yeah. So obviously, it's also all like skyscrapers and all that now here. Back then, there was hardly anything. But even if you were to try and compare this with what we have today, you can actually find some features that you can recognize. Quarry Reserve, for example. That's actually today Pavilion Bukit Bintang. That's built here. It was a quarry. And where we are sitting now today is lot 113. Where's 113? Yeah, this one. Actually had a building then. And the lot number remains the same. So, you know, we are sitting in a historical spot lah. Yeah. So I think where we are now, obviously, is a very dense build-up, and it's got what they call it, skyscrapers, extremely high plot ratios. 10 is common, 20 is sometimes seen even, and most of the river is concealed. It's actually buried underground. But if we were to, so this is where Teckwyn pointed out earlier. He highlighted it in an earlier slide that this is where the Lumpur flows out into the Klang River. But what you see behind that sluice gate is not actually the what we believe the Sungai Lumpur. It's actually the dead-ended section of the Sungai Klang, the one that got bypassed in the river straightening that happened between 57 and 62. If I were to go back a bit, to this map. Yeah, this one. So what we're seeing now, that sluice gate is here. It's actually the bypassed section of the Sungai Klang that is still flowing because it needs to serve as a conduit for the Treacher Valley stream to flow out the Sungai Klang. This part obviously has been filled in and built over. So this part is still flowing, and that's where the sluice gate is. Yeah. So this is actually taken from across the stream at a place in Kampung Baru that Kampung Baru old timers would refer to as Kampung Cendana, on the other side of Klang River. So among the other kind of places where you actually see an open channel, Sungai Lumpur is here. We're actually peeking over the wall to RSGC. Obviously, you'd be trespassing if you climb over that wall. And this one is a nice spot, very nice civilized spot at which to observe another open section of Sungai Lumpur. It's actually at behind Matik. Behind Matik, it's Jalan Lau Yu Sui to be exact. I think you can see that Jalan Lau Yu Sui behind Matik. Yeah. Oh yeah, maybe one. Yeah, and obviously now I would like to also point out that oh sorry. Yeah. So just going back to some of these old maps, I think the importance of such old maps in actually tracing the whole landscape is actually very can't be overstated. I think in this 1929 map is probably one of the first insight we have as to the cadastral divisions around the city at that time. Cadastral meaning land ownership mapping. And obviously these are not to the level of land title accuracy. There's actually much more detailed survey plans produced by survey department. But when you want to drill down to the next level below this, a lot of those old survey plans are actually kind of disappearing. The signposts to exact layouts, exact locations are disappearing. So it's actually quite fortunate that maps like this actually pointed us to find the last remnants of available record at survey department. The actual certified plans that we could buy, that we could overlay onto Google Earth and actually find the exact locations that we were after. And it also enabled us in later iterations of this to actually narrow down even when this river straightening happened. Because as I mentioned earlier, the 1957 town plan, basically the next one after 1929, showed the river meandering like this. And then the 1962 one, 1962 one showed that it had already been straightened. So we know that this happened between 57 and 62, just after Merdeka. And that sluice gate probably came along at that same time as well. So, yes, finally, this one. This building, I think, anyone recognize it? Anyone would like to venture to say what it is? Yeah, it's a project that has been stuck, and yeah, exactly. Zach, thanks for that, Zach. Yeah, he's the right guy to say that. Dota Grand hired, or actually not so grand at the moment. It's an abandoned project for I think 25 years. Is it, Zach? Is it 25 years or so? It's been abandoned. Yeah, it was supposed to be a hotel. Now, actually, there is an open channel section of the abandoned or bypass Sungai Klang flowing right through that construction site. Right through that construction. If I were to actually, sorry for the, maybe I have to flashback again and point out where it is. Yeah, this section. The Dota Grand Highway is actually here. The land that they own actually straddles the river. So part of the project site is on this side of the river, part of the project site is on this side of the river. It straddles, so it's still an open channel in between, flowing right through that construction site. And in fact, it offers the closest approach to what we theorize to be the spot of Kuala Lumpur. If you go right to where that open channel crosses underneath Jalan Sultan Ismail, it's literally only 30 meters or so to where we believe the Sungai Lumpur spills into the Klang River, or rather the Klang River of that era, yeah, which is now flowing through its construction site. So I think it's very exciting and interesting to think of what are the possibilities that might exist if, for example, what we have done now in terms of keeping the idea alive, of I guess creating a basis by which future researchers, maybe even future archaeologists, maybe even improve better scanning, underground scanning technology might one day be able to achieve, to actually bring us to a higher level of certainty that there might have been there could have been a river named Lumpur, after which Kuala Lumpur was named. And maybe then there will be the possibility to actually talk about investments into actually creating a theory site. One of my pipe dreams, for example, is that well, if you look at this entire area, there are quite a number of touristy attractions, and the major corporate edifice around the area is, of course, Petronas, Twin Towers. Yeah, my pipe dream, why not they buy this over? Adaptively repurpose the thing, modify it, make it something that can actually serve as a platform or a launch pad for tourism to actually recognize the highly likely origin of the name of Kuala Lumpur. Yeah. So I think that's what I have to say. I hope it helped to close the loop a bit. Teckwyn, anything to that? No? Okay. Yep. Thanks very much, Sharon.
Thank you very much, Teckwyn and Peter, for that wonderful talk. Can we just jump back to the map of 1929?
How do I have the red light? Yeah, right. Red light, yeah. How the light, yeah. This one, is it? Oh, right.
So as Peter mentioned, this is where we are. Now what's fascinating is that, so this building, we just celebrated the 100th anniversary last year, 2025. So this map is 2029. So you can see that this building is intact. And you are seated. That's where you are. Okay? That's where you are. Okay? Now, just one other thing. Hang on. Give me a minute. Kia Peng. Yeah.
So yeah, the exit is not completed, but like I'm thinking about taking a walk later. Just coming out here, it's about 8-minute walk, and then turning right on Kia Peng over here. There's a car park. the Princess Hotels around here, I think. In fact, from this point over here, less than 10 minutes walk, you've got a nice view on both sides of the road. You can see the stream.
So as far as I'm aware, when I was at school at St. John's, like in the 60s and 70s, so on the way home via Jalan Peri. Jalan Peri is today Jalan Piramli. Jalan Piramli, right? So I would travel through this road, and yes, I remember on the left there were a string of similar bungalows, right? So this was the home of I didn't know the British colonial officers who lived there, but Raja Moha and Rama Aye. And this was it's not a condo. This was Salehabas. And now the only two remaining colonial bungalows in this area is this one, and this one. But it's been modified. It's been. No, I'm sorry. It's actually this one. Yeah, this one. So these two are the only remaining. Yeah. So that's quite fascinating. Yeah. Okay. And so can we have the slide on the QR code? Yeah. So we're going to open the floor to questions. Sorry. Yeah. The last QR code. Yes. So,
Oh, yeah, thanks. Yeah. If you just scan this one, it actually brings you to the web map. It's a Google web map. So if you open it in your handphones, you can actually navigate that, that the pink colored, the pink shaded Treacher Valley basin as you walk through the landscape. So if you are coming along for the little stroll that Teckwyn proposed, you can kind of like use it to actually imagine where exactly is the streams that as you walk through, where exactly the Treacher Valley stream flows as you walk through. Yeah.
So I understand that Teckwyn and Peter might take some of you on a stroll. If you're interested, maybe, yeah? Right? You have to check with them. So can we have the feedback and the donation QR codes, yeah? Okay. So before we end, make sure, please do give us your feedback. Whether you like the talk, and what kind of talks you'd like to listen to. If you'd like to donate to the restoration of Rimba Penghulu, by all means. There's a QR code at the back for the KL Discovery Pass, part of the KL Festival. So can I see any show of hands for questions for the two speakers? Yes, please.
Morning. It's very fascinating. I just wonder whether there are not already ways archaeologically to determine whether the river existed. And in fact, there might be other rivers as well. Just out of curiosity, because there are many dead or ghost rivers today. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I think there's no doubt, in fact, we've seen ourselves, that the river still exists. It's just it's turned into a drain now. So normally when we think about a river, we don't think it's straight and channelized, covered up. But there is this thing about topography, meaning that there's a natural lie of the land, which no matter how much you build on top, it's very hard to change the underlying topography and the underlying drainage. So for this Treacher Valley basin, the topography is, the hydrology is more or less the same. It's just that it's underground now. Half of it's underground, but occasionally it pops up. Like if you do go and walk around and you take some of the routes that are shown on the map, you can.
Which one?
Can I click? All right. All right. Yeah. So the archaeology that's needed is really the archaeology for Bukit Nanas, because there is oral history. In fact, one of the talks earlier in the series about the Orang Asli, they claim that they did have a settlement around here, and they had a perkuburan or a grave burial ground somewhere in the vicinity of the hill. Maybe not up on the hill, but around the foothills of the hill. Unfortunately, there has been no published archaeology, despite the fact that when this tunnel was found, there was some university researchers went and had a look at it. This has been several years and nothing has been published. And I don't think there's any ongoing work on the hill, but there have also been finds in KL. When they were digging the LRT, they found some pottery, they found some stone tools, but again, nothing published. Well, it came out in the newspaper that they found some ceramics, but no proper academic study, and that's what's needed. And we have contacted the University of Malaya. Fortunately now does have an archaeologist based in UM, and so hopefully she will look at it, or maybe some of the archaeologists from Penang will come down. It's just, to me, it's important, right? It's our federal capital. We should know about the archaeology, but so far the archaeology has been dismissed as being, oh, we know the story already. Yeah. So that is the top priority for me, I would say, to really cement the story of KL. So it's not just about the where is the Sungai Kuala Lumpur. Like Lubis and I, we disagree on the location of the river, but we both agree that there was a river and there was an important history to KL before the Chinese tin miners arrived, and that is what needs to be developed and taken there. I mean, this, in a way, the Sungai Lumpur is sort of it's useful as an icon, as a symbol to get people interested in the history. But what's more important is really getting a better understanding of the history.
Hi, my name is Zach, and I would just like to ask, either one of you could answer. Could it be that the entirety of Sungai Gombak itself is actually Sungai Lumpur? And also another thing is the Treacher Valley stream. There are some publications that says it is also named as Sungai Pinang.
Okay. All right. So we did look at that as one of the criteria, but we examined whether or not this Sungai Gombak was the Sungai Lumpur. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the main thing to me that does not attract me to that theory or that possibility is that it has a name. Sungai Gombak is well established. It's mentioned in literature. The local Orang Asli refer to it as Sungai Gombak. No one has ever said that actually it used to be known as Lumpur and then it changed. Why did it change? That one has not been put forward. Of course, it is a possibility. I'm not saying it's impossible. It is possible that it changed, but you need to make that a compelling argument. You need to say why it changed, and also you need to say why the settlement on the opposite bank of the river took the name from the river. Because as I mentioned, the standard naming is that the Kuala is over here. How come this one took Kuala Lumpur? Actually, I didn't explain our theory fully. I should say that what happened is that originally this area was known as Mukim Lumpur, meaning that from the traditional administration of the Malays before the British. The administration goes back about more than 500 years. Tumpara was mentioned in the Malay annals. He was based in Klang. He was the promoter of the whole of the Klang area. And then they had a split. And the new promoter was based in Petaling. That's the promoter Mukim of Mukim Petaling, included this whole area, Mukim Petaling. And then we split it again. And then we had a Mukim Lumpur, not sure exactly when. But when they developed mining up in Ampang, Pekan Ampang is somewhere around here, Kuala Ampang is here. All of these mines, there was a new center, a new Penolo based up here. So this included a new Mukim Ampang. And if you notice here, these headwaters, even though places like Tanggachina, which maybe was in the Ulu of Sungai Lumpur, it was now under Mukim Ampang. So Mukim Lumpur had been split. And so Mukim Lumpur had to be renamed as Kuala Lumpur, Mukim Kuala Lumpur. So there was never any Kampung Kuala Lumpur. It was actually several kampungs under the Mukim. The kampung like Kampung Raya, Pangkalan Lumpur, Tanggachina. Actually, Tanggachina is slightly outside, but Bukit was perhaps the center. That's where Sultan Pasar had his stockade. And that was well before the Chinese town, before the Chinese settlement, before this Pangkalan became important. It's well established. There was already settlement over here. And so this area was centered. In fact, Gulick himself admits it. He says the center of Malay control was on Bukit Nanas, which just happened to be right next to the mouth of the Treacher Valley stream. And so this is our thinking, is that collectively, these settlements would have been referred to as Kuala Lumpur.
Hi, my name is Magan. I've got a couple of questions, maybe 3 questions. First question is the Treacher Valley stream, that will be the place where it joins to Klang River, that is where Anderson would have landed, right?
We don't know. He just said there was a Sungai Lumpur.
Sungai Lumpur, but if you say that is Sungai Lumpur, if Treacher stream is Sungai Lumpur, then that would likely be the place that...
There might have been something on Bukit Nanas, like a Kobo on Bukit Nanas. So he might not have come all the way up here. He might have stopped somewhere around here, right?
Okay.
He might. We don't have. This is where we get back to archaeology. We don't really know what if there was ever any. What is it? So we don't really know whether there was a settlement over here. It might have been over here, Bukit Timbalan. There was a Kubra down here, Bukit Resam.
Right.
He might have come over here. Right. But we don't know.
Right, but because what Anderson is saying, that he sailed up Klang River and counted all those settlements, and he's going by sequence as well.
Yeah.
So if he says Lumpur, then that would have been a settlement over there. My question really is that if that was the settlement that was Kuala Lumpur, that gave Kuala Lumpur its name, and that's the settlement, that would have probably be the main settlement and not today's confluence of Gombak and Klang River.
Yeah, I mean, that's well established that the main settlement back then, before the Chinese, was on Bukit Nanas. And that's much closer. Why the Bukit Nanas is not referred to as Kampung Lumpur, I'm not sure. Maybe it was.
Okay, now really my question is, when then did it shift over to the confluence of Klang and Gombak rivers? Because when the tin miners, the famous 1957, when Raja Abdullah brought in the Chinese miners, they landed at that point, right? Was it at that point that landed, or was it over here at the...
Okay, all right, so that's a good question. So we go to that. So the Pangkalan and the shops, there was like 2 or 3 shops, right? And then there was also the house of the, so it was down here, right? So it's about 1 mile away from the mouth of the Treacher Valley stream. So the Chinese base was next to this Pangkalan here. And so the houses, the shops sprung up around here. But there was already a Taman settlement over here, up around here. There was already this Kampung Rawa. There was already, the Kubu, Sultan Prasa built the Kubu on Bukit Nanas during the war. But even before the Kubu, there was probably, from the point, again, it gets back to archaeology to nail this down. But normally, this is an ideal place to have an ancient Neolithic settlement on the top of Bukit Nanas up here. So this would have been occupied much longer. I'm not sure if that really answers your question. Maybe you could rephrase.
Oh, yeah, I'm just trying to get at where did, if Anderson landed further up north, at the and that was called Sungai Lumpur. That it makes sense because that's the Ampang Road and there's a lot of tin mining over there, and so that tin would have been brought over there to be exported. But we hear from Galik that after the Gombak Klang confluence, the river was very narrow, so boats could not sail up there. So that's another issue over there. So then, I think it's a multi-part question. Why did Raja Abdullah then land at the Gombak, or did he land at the Gombak Klang confluence, or did he go up at the Klang Treacher Valley stream confluence?
Okay, so there are many parts of that question. The first thing I would say, if we go back to, go forward, sorry, is that it's not that the river was too shallow. The river was slightly shallow, but you have you have these dugout canoes, you have shallow canoes. They can go up. It's just it was very winding. You can see that at that time. Look at this is from 19th century map. Look how windy the river was. So it makes sense to build this road. It was swampy and windy and was overgrown. It's not that it's physically impossible for boats to go up. It was just more difficult. And so it was convenient to stop here if there was some kind of Pangkalan here. To get back to a question about Raja Abdullah, if it's Libis as well has documented well before there was tin mining in this area, such as Pudu, well before Raja Abdullah. We're talking about hundreds of years ago. There has been mining here, and this road to Pudu would have been built. Even I don't really have archaeology for this, but it's more based on history. This road, the Pudu Road, is older than the Ampang Road. That's another reason why you would stop here, because there was some kind of established settlement. Maybe not slightly up here, but maybe down here. So there were several reasons why they would want to stop around here, because it's a meeting point for the Pudu mines. A lot of tin mining in Pudu that would come to a Pangkalan Pudu, and there's also a Pangkalan Batu. The tin mines in Batu follow the Batu Road down here, and also sometimes they will come down. So if from the point of tax collecting, this is a good place, because you get the traffic from Batu, the traffic from Ampang, and the traffic from Pudu. Why did the Pudu people come up here? It's a similar, you have to zoom out a bit. We can go out. Right, so Pudu is down here. To take tin out by river is quite a winding way, and this was, I think it comes something like that. this Krayong, Sungai Krayong, right? Yeah. But the point is that this location is a nexus of mines from Ulukrang, Ampang, Pudu, Batu. It makes sense from a logistical point of view. And the final and important point about Anderson is that Anderson is going upstream, and he mentions Batu first. And so that makes me think, okay, we zoom in, we see the Pangkalan for, actually, if you this is a bit indirect, like he mentions Batu first. So either Batu refers to this, right, Sungai Batu, for those of you who don't know, it takes its name from Batu Kapal Panggang, or now known as Batu Caves. So Sungai Batu Kapal Panggang came from the tin mines in the vicinity of up north down here, and then they would bring the boats all the way down Sungai Gombak to this location. They also had a cart, which is now Jalan Tunku Abdul Rahman, going Batu Road. And so this is mentioned first by Anderson. So that makes me think somehow he would have encountered Lumpur slightly further upstream. He said it's the one that's furthest upstream, and it's also 1 day's walk from Pahang, which kind of matches if we look at the original route to Pahang.
That was my next question, because Anderson's list don't seem to match, or I could be misreading it, doesn't seem to match the place names on the map. Because
Okay.
he has Petaling on top, and then he goes to Batu, and then he comes to Lumpur, which is all over the place.
No, to me it's perfect. We'll go back and have a look at it. Okay. So he starts at the coast. I won't go into all of these. He mentions he mentions 15 locations downstream. And in our report, we go through all 15, and he mentions them in perfect order as you encounter them going upstream. Starting 16, Penaga, Petaling, and he mentions Serdang. Right, it's a bit strange, but the Pangkalan for Serdang, if you look at the Jalan, it's right here. You want the road today that goes to Serdang, it comes right here. So it matches. Then he mentions Jinjang. Jinjang is a bit strange. This is the only one, maybe it's a bit of a stretch. But there are roads connecting there. Then he mentions Pantai. He calls it Pantai Rosa. But Pantai Rosa, Pantai, it's no stretch to say that it's here. And then he mentions, right, there's a typo for number 21. We go into a lot of detail as to why there's a typo. He calls it, what's the typo? Kuala Bulu.
Pudu is it?
If you want, I can explain why there was a typo. It was not that he got the name wrong. It's that it was transcribed by the printer. It's a typographical error by the printer who couldn't read his handwriting.
Okay.
But basically Pudu, and then Batu, and then Lumpur. So,
But Batu is, where is Batu on?
all right, so Batu is here,
Yeah.
but Batu enters the Klang River, or the road or the river to Batu. The Pangkalan is here. It's before Lumpur. We'll go to the next slide. We can see more detail. No, wrong way. Sorry. Okay. Right. You see the Pangkalan to Batu is here, right here. They did take some river traffic. The heavy tin boats. They brought it down Sungai Batu. They brought it down here. But they also brought it by road. Well, not really road. It's the bullock cart, right?
Yeah.
This is the old Batu Road.
Yeah, but
So it's over here.
he's writing in 1818. He's writing in 1819, And this Batu Road came much later, right?
We don't know when it started, but there is evidence that it's an ancient access point for the mines at Batu. But even if that road, even if you say there's no road, they floated them down by boat, then this is the point where he would have encountered Batu along the river.
And that point is the confluence, today's confluence of Gombak and Klang. So that was Batu to him.
Yeah, I think maybe this is the reason for, part of the reasons for Lubis thinking that Batu was Gombak, because Anderson does not mention Gombak.
Yeah. But from what I understand, I think it was Professor Koo who said, it's not Batu that came all the way down, but right now there's a confluence of Gombak and Batu. Then from that confluence down to the Klang confluence is where they called it Sungai Batu. Not all the way up. So it was not Gombak all the way up, but only from the confluence of Sungai Batu and Sungai Gombak that they called it Sungai Batu.
Yeah. So I can understand why there would be some confusion. and Lubis and Salma mentioned this yesterday. If you look at the size of the river Batu and the orientation, it's very similar to the Ulu Gombak in that this one is something like 9.8 and this one is 11 in terms of the size. So this one is about 10% bigger. So if you think back in the ancient days, if they want to know which one is the anak of which one, this is not so straightforward. And Salma's point is this very straight. So if you think if it's following straight, this is possibly could be interpreted as the main river. So there is a possibility that this whole stretch could have originally been referred to as the Sungai Batu. I accept that there is some logic to that, although there is no historical reference to it. It is possible. Yeah.
So very quick question: where did you get the 1929 map from?
Yes, most of our maps, we should credit. There are a few websites now. The most important, perhaps, is the Singapore Archives, Singapore National Archives. They have all of these online.
So can we go to the slide with the John Anderson? Yeah. The one with the this one, yeah.
Okay, just so you see
just a couple of points. The British tend to name their roads. Jalan Ampang is at Lebu Ampang, but the road that leads to Ampang, and Batu is presumably the road that leads all the way to Batu.
Well, it's not the British. It's like everyone will say, it's that before you have a nama, glamour, you will have a functional name, right? Yeah. If you are standing in KL, then Jalan Ampang is Jalan ke Ampang. But if you're standing in Ampang, then Jalan Ampang is actually Jalan KL, right?
Yeah. So, and the other point is that at the top of this page, actually, when I looked at it, I thought this was along the same river, but I don't think that was the intent of Anderson, because it says at the top, it says, the following are the names of the villages upon the river. Okay, villages, V with a capital, R with a capital, as far as within 1 day's journey of Pahang. So it seems to indicate that these are villages that are on the riverside, but not necessarily on the same.
Yeah, okay, so this is a point of some confusion. When you say on the river, he is talking about in the river basin and not actually tepi sungai, not actually on the bank of the river. Some of them are quite far away from the river, such as Jinjang and Serdang. They're several kilometers away, but they are still within the same watershed, meaning that they are not within Langa. They are all draining into Klang, the Klang Valley.
Not along the same single river.
They're all in the Klang Valley, but they're not immediately on the bank of the river Klang.
Thank you very much. My name is Kate. I'm curious, where's the origin of the Treacher Valley stream and where it joins the Klang River? My second question is, where is Pengkalan today? Because in the drawing, it shows that it's near Sultan Abdul Samad building. Then, based on yesterday's talk, Pengkalan is also called Mangkalan. And then this goes to hearsay. Yeah. My late uncle will say he always go to Mangkalan, which is north of Jalan Ipoh, about Batu Empat. So yesterday I asked my 91-year-old mother, where is Mangkalan? And she said it is near the Batu Empat Mosque.
Okay.
There's some confusion.
Right. Thanks for those two questions. I'll answer the first one first. So when you talk about the origin of a stream, you've got several tributaries, but the main normally you follow the main flow of the river will come up right past where we are now and continue through the golf course, going all the way across to Yutan area near almost next to Ampang Hilir. So the peak is the drainage basin of this river. So you see Taman Tase Ampang Hilir, that's outside. But you know the polo club around here, that's the headwaters of the Treacher Valley stream. But more or less the whole of the Golden Triangle is inside the Treacher Valley basin. The northern boundary is more or less Jalan Ampang, because you mentioned earlier Jalan Ampang is a ridge and there are no bridges on it apart from here. So that forms the northern boundary of the basin. North of here, the water flows directly into the Klang River. But south of Jalan Ampang, the water drains south and eventually comes out over here. Right, well, second question is about Mangkalan or Pangkalan. There is not one, there are several, there are many. You know, the idea of building a Pangkalan is if you need land access to the mines, at some point you will always need land access to the mine, right? And sometimes you have the good question that I think we can explore why is that Mangkalan Batu would have been serving the mines at Batu. How come the one in Kuala Lumpur is not called Pangkalan Ampang? And I think the answer is because before the mines at Ampang were opened up, there were already mines in the Lumpur area, in the Lumpur basin. This was a tin mine. This is in fact another tin mine. There were several tin mines around Datuk Kramat, which is referred to as Tangga Cina. And if you look in over here in the golf course, now the water, what do they call them? The water traps or something. The features of the golf club, these were also mines. And I think even in KLCC Park, this area, this landscape would have been dotted by mines. You look at the old maps, you can see some of those mines. And so they would it made sense for the Pangkalan to be called Pangkalan Lumpur over here. But I think there was also a Pangkalan Batu even earlier. So you have Pangkalan Batu and the Pangkalan Pudu. These go back hundreds of years, well before the British and even the Raja Abdullah bringing Chinese. As Lubis pointed out, there were Minangkabau, there were Mandailing, there were Malay tin mining in the interior for 500 years. In fact, it's mentioned, Klang as a source of tin is mentioned as supplying Malacca during the Malacca Sultanate. And in the course of our research, we found that Dutch came to Klang. They came to a place called Bukit Kuda in Klang, and they refer to, at that time, the Tok Empat was in the Ulu, in the tin mines, and he came down and met the Dutch in Klang. So yeah, the ancient tin mining up here. One thing I want to point out is this Jalan Pudu goes all the way to Pudu Ulu, and there would have been a Pangkalan Pudu around where Central Market is. as well. So not necessarily one Pangkalan, but the Pangkalan Lumpur is generally accepted. The main Pangkalan, the famous Pangkalan Lumpur, is accepted to be seberang Kuala. So across, I think it was called Cross Street. What's it called today? Yeah.
There was a question at the back here.
So, hi, Darawati here. So this is my third talk, and I think there's a phrase that says "one day to Pahang." So are we talking about waterway, walking by horse, and is it this map? And I've done Kampung Kemensa to Genting Bidai by trekking. So are you talking waterways or?
Yeah, so jalan kaki or naik kuda.
Or what?
Yeah. In fact, the interesting thing about Genting Bidai is they even brought kerbau, buffalo up there. So and the elephant.
It's not an easy walk, but so I'm just which say one day from Pangkalan, isn't it?
Yeah. So it would have been either this route or similar route going up to Genting Bidai. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Leong here. Actually, I'm a local, and from my secondary school textbook, normally what we know about Kuala Lumpur is the confluence between Klang River and Gombak River. It's kind of swampy, but from the Mooking map you showed just now, actually it doesn't look swampy at all. So are you trying to say the origin of Kuala Lumpur is not even at the confluence area?
Yeah, that's what we're saying. There was the word the confluence is misleading because you think of confluence as a meeting of two similar sized streams, but you can also kind of have a confluence of a small stream with a big stream. So the word Kuala is more river mouth. In fact, there was this English word embouchure, but people don't know what it means. It's no longer used so much. There was an English word that means river mouth or stream mouth. So there's so if you want to translate Kuala more accurately, I would say stream mouth or river mouth is better. Now, to get back to the question of Lumpur, not sure if you can see on this map, all of these symbols are swamp. So there are lots of swamps in the Treacher Valley. There was lots of swamp in the Bunus area, and there was a lot of swamp in the southern part of the KL town in the vicinity of a place that was known as Sungai Rosam. And the Sungai Rosam, lower part of Sungai Rosam, is sometimes referred to as I think Yapalei had a house and a pig market or this pig sty or something, or a rubbish dump. It was a horrible swamp, and the British sort of drained it. But even before that, I would say it must have been a beautiful swamp in the sense that originally it would have been thriving with wildlife. It would have been a place with a lot of freshwater fish. So it would have been quite a lovely swamp, although the English language doesn't really rate swamps very highly. It's kind of negative.
Yeah, Masjid India was the Bunus swamp, I think, till about 100 years ago. Because at that time, the Sungai Bunus hadn't been bypassed. Now today, Sungai Bunus water actually flows out to the Klang River, actually very near KLCC, because of flood mitigation works done in the 60s probably. But originally, the Sungai Bunus flowed all the way through Kampung Baru and actually met the Klang River in Masjid India. And if you go further before that, actually, before the area had been developed, it's all entirely swamp, about 100 years ago.
Angie here. I just wanted to know what's the history behind Tangga Cina, because now it's called Datuk Kramat. And the second one is, you said that many rivers were concealed, and how would that impact Kuala Lumpur in future? Because we have a lot of flash floods and a lot of high-rise buildings. And perhaps one last one, a suggestion that perhaps next time you could have a guided tour where perhaps you can show us where the rivers are?
Okay, so we're not tour guides, but we have some tour guides here. What I would say is that we will happen, Peter and I, after this, we will happen to possibly going for a walk. And so, I'll just put it like that. We're not inviting anyone, we're not leading a tour, but we might go for a stroll down the road after this. All right, your second question was about Tangachina. Yeah, it's intriguing. What I do know, the interesting thing is that there was a kramat, meaning there was a kubur, a makam of this this holy man, Muslim holy man, that has since been, I think it's been moved or demolished. But even before that, there must have been some kind of steps or structure, possibly related to Chinese tin mining in the area. But well, a good candidate for archaeology, that area. I have no idea. I think Jesse had the idea that maybe Tangachina was related to some kind of steps going up Bukit Nanas, or but yeah, we know very little about the reason why Tangachina is called Tangachina. I don't know. Oh, your first question. I can't remember your first question, Miss. On the second one? All right, yeah, good point. There was, in fact, when we search for Treacher Valley stream, there's not much online. One of the ones that came up is like a New Straits Times report about flooding. So yes, the flood management is related to the fact that these rivers are being covered up. Yeah, so it's a problem.
Oh, okay. My name is Lam Sing Fat. Okay, my name is Lam Sing Fat. Okay. I've got a couple of questions for you. Okay, you show us a 1929 map which shows the Treacher Valley stream. Do you have an earlier map which shows that stream and names it in its original form?
Yeah, we have an earlier map. It just calls it Valley Stream.
No, that was later. I think it was 1940 map, I think. I've seen that map as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the problem. The problem is there's no earlier map which names it as Sungai Lumpur.
There is an earlier map with a R Lumpur. That is Irving's this one, 1972, R Lumpur. The problem with that map is it's just a sketch, and it puts the R Lumpur on the west.
Yes, I know that. Yeah. I know that. It names Sungai Gombak as R Lumpur.
Well, we don't know if it's Sungai Gombak.
Yeah,
we don't know that. It's just a sketch, but it's on the west.
It's in the river, right? Okay, fine. Now, the thing is this. Obviously, Treacher Valley stream was named by the British. Obviously. It was named after the Selangor resident, right? Who was resident, I think, in the 1920s. Now, obviously, there must have been some decision made by the British guys. Have you managed to find the minutes of the meeting? That's the thing. Because if you can find that, then you solve everything.
Well, not really, because the minutes are unlikely to mention that, it was, let's rename Sungai Lumpur. What the minutes would say, okay, there is this drain, and this drain does not have a name. Let's call it Treacher Valley.
Yeah,
yeah.
They must have mediated somewhere.
Yeah, but the point is that wouldn't help us. It wouldn't take us any further in solving the mystery.
Yeah. No, I think you find the minutes, you solve the mystery.
No, because because if the minutes, Mr. Lam, if the minutes mentioned Sungai Lumpur, yes, it would solve it. But can you imagine the British saying, all right, we want to rename Sungai Lumpur? No, they wouldn't do that. They did not rename Sungai Gombak. They did not rename Sungai Bunus. The British were very conservative when it came to renaming streams. And rightly so, because the streams had the heart of the people connected to them. They would not simply erase the streams. In fact, I know of no example where a stream or river in Malaysia was renamed by the British, and the sense that they chabut a local name and put a Matsali name. No, I don't think that happened. They would not have done that. It would have been, okay, this is actually quite an important general point. From their thinking, these features in the landscape had no name because there was no one there living there. It was what they call terra nullius. It was open for the taking. It was just jungle. The Orang Asli had been relocated out of the area, so they could claim any of that land. They could give it, alienate it, either to their cronies or to the Tauke Cina or to the Malay. It was up for grabs. And that's actually quite an important point, this attitude that the land belongs to no one, so we can rename it and we can claim it.
And then sometimes there's no one there or no one willing to speak up to suggest what the name was, either Malay or Asli. And then the other thing also we kind of theorize is that the pride of engineering achievement. Did you notice when you go through a lot of these old maps, you have this thing called AM drain, anti-malaria drain. So it might well have been a stream with a local traditional name, but I think the pride of engineering achievement says that, hey, we are doing sanitation and disease control. So it's an AM drain, So like for instance, if you look at the lake gardens, Sydney Lake, of course it's Sydney Lake because Frank Sutton's time it became Sydney Lake, right? But to find the name of the original river that fed it and actually discharges into Sungai Klang, up to now, I can only find one very old topo map that actually states the name Sungai Bras. Yes, and I could only find one of them. Yeah. I sent it to Mariana as well. Yeah. Oh, okay, that's great. So it's, I think that's the thing, like as Teckwyn says, but I think just coming back to your original question about the 1929 map, I think there are maps and there are maps. Why we treat the 1929 map as significant is because it is actually a Surveyor General of Federated Malay States map. It's not from an author or whatever. It's actually from the survey department. And it actually forms the kind of a starting point for cadastral referencing, even to the land lots that we have today. So as you saw just now, we could even see where Badan Warisan's exact lot is. And that, pavilion was a quarry. So I guess we have to also differentiate the statuses of maps as well. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, this is a quick question. Do you guys check out the DID maps? Because I think they were also involved in addressing flooding in KL, right, in the 1930s.
Yeah, well, thanks, Dr. Kamal. So there is this interesting map of basins in the Klang Valley that was commissioned, well, it was done by JICA, Japanese aid agency. And so they helped develop the flood mitigation strategy for Klang Valley. They, before I go into what they called it, DBKL refers to this stream as Anak Sungai Lumpur Treacher. Yeah, Anak Sungai Lumpur Treacher. The Japanese study that mapped the basin, I think they called it the Tongshin Basin. Yeah. 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 And there have been reference to this Anak Sungai Lumpur Treacher several times in Parliament as well, because when they were trying to get allocations for flood control, for straightening, for covering up, that kind of thing. So there is reference to the river as the stream using the Treacher name still today. So it's not like it's completely anonymous. It is still being used. Of course, the Lumpur thing, we find no documented evidence of that. If we found documented evidence, habis cerita, it's black and white. But this requires some triangulation.
We need to close by 12 sharp. Can I take one or two questions before we close? Anyone? Yes.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I just would like to ask the speakers, Teckwyn and Peter. Rivers have always been considered drains. Okay, in town planning, rivers is just nothing. It's just a way for the storm waters to go in. And now with so much floodings and happening, and even the unearthing of much of our river reserves has become water storage management has been degazetted for development. And Peter highlighted a place where your hope to make it something where somebody can come in and redevelop it. But I'm an urban planner by profession, and I never went into town planning because the first thing is, how does it give you money, and politically, and how does it actually make the city any better? So we're looking for this river that are now underneath. They could be drains. We are tourist guides now. There are some tourist guides here. I've often been saying tourist guide, but I'm a town planner by profession, and I'm also a conservation and now a tourist guide. So how do we bring this idea that the river is no longer a drain, and how do we make it part of our city?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's all about mindset shift. And like I said, we can take a walk to see the stream, right? Or we plan to take a walk to see the stream, but you don't really need to take a walk. You know, just the gutter from this house, right? It's part of the drainage basin. The gutter from this house goes to a longkang behind here. And do we look at it as a longkang, as a drain? Or do we look at it as the headwaters of a stream? And that's part of a bigger basin. And I mean, sometimes you think about, you look inside longkang, you see some guppies inside. There is an ecology there. It is part of, I mean, we try and dominate nature, but nature is still there, and we are still part of this nature. And it's not just nature. I mean, in a way, this whole talk is from the point of view of cultural heritage. But I love your question, Carol. If we start thinking from the point of view of ecology, then all of this gives us a fresh appreciation of everything we have, of our natural heritage as well as our cultural heritage. Yeah.
So my friend next to me is asking me to stop. But anyway, I actually just throwing this idea because I actually want us to start thinking that every ground covered reduces your water catchment. And I've been born in Kuala Lumpur. It used to be greenery here, and every time you develop, you're reducing your water catchment. So look at this area as a water catchment now.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be so pessimistic, right? You can build, and then you can have rooftop gardens. You can still have greenery, and in fact, by building, I mean, we're on Badan Warisan. It's about appropriate structures and incorporating the natural features like vertical gardens, and so you can in a way have your cake and eat it too, but not like not like in the past, the concrete jungle. It needs to be done more sympathetically. Yeah.
Maybe I add something. I think there's a lot of growing, advocacy for what you are talking about, especially in the suburbs of KL, because we have residents associations. Residents associations nowadays in KL have found themselves to be part of major coalitions. One of which I volunteer for is called the KL Residents Action for Sustainable Development. It's got something like 70 odd RAs under one umbrella. But in the CBD, I think then the question comes, there are no RAs, no residents associations. Who actually advocates for a sustainable and aesthetic and environmentally sustainable city? I think I would like to believe that the business guilds, the chambers of commerce and all that should have a major stake in that. At the moment, we are not really seeing that. Yeah, and I think at some point, I think the business guilds and the chambers of commerce need to realize that if we don't actually take some concrete action, I think ultimately it would devalue the central business district to the point where, one day there may be a mass exodus because, our central business district is too choked, too flood prone, blah, 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 that kind of thing.
So anyone else before we close? Yeah. So a big round of applause. Can we have the slides with the QR code, please? The slides with the QR code. Thank you. So, yes, please.
Sorry, a quick one. My apologies for the QR code. It seems to have had a very quick expiry. I don't know why. But anyone who'd like the web map, come over after the talk. I'll give you my phone number and then I can WhatsApp it to you. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. So do please stay on and mingle, and don't forget to give us our give your feedback. And if you'd like to donate, there's a QR code for the KL Discovery Pass. And of course, I would like to say a big thank you to our sponsors, Think City. And we have one more session this afternoon. Azim is our registered conservator who's helping us to restore the Rumah Penghulu, which is more than 100 years old. And he will be talking about his new book, KL Past, Present and Future. Thank you very much.